Geoff Petrie was a dynamic player coming out of Princeton, as he modeled his game after Jerry West. At 6'4", he had the handle and shooting range to play both guard positions, with elite passing vision as well. When he was selected with the 8th pick in 1970 by Portland, he was the first draft choice of the NBA's new expansion franchise in the Pacific Northwest. Most people didn't even know who he was when he was drafted, but he quickly made an impact, averaging 25 points a game, becoming an all-star and winning the Rookie of the Year. Over the next 6 years, Petrie was consistently one of the better guards in the league, even becoming the first NBA player to ditch the Chuck Taylors for Nike shoes. But Geoff could never reach the postseason, even though the Blazers received a lot of luck in the draft lottery. By year 6, Geoff's knees would fail him, as it was the worst timing, with Portland finally making the playoffs and surprising everyone with a Cinderella run to the championship. But Geoff's basketball career was over at 27, but he would stay around the game, even becoming an executive for the Blazers and Kings. While most people know of Geoff in this role, they often forget about his promising basketball career. But today we're going to look at the brief but memorable career of Geoff Petrie. Geoff was born on April 17, 1948 in Darby, Pennsylvania. After a solid career at Springfield High, he committed to Princeton University. He joined John Hummer on a Tiger squad that placed 8th in the preseason rankings. Despite the team having a lot of scores, Princeton had a defensive identity, allowing the 5th fewest points in the nation. They were 12-2 in the Ivy League, placing second to Columbia, who was led by Jim McMillan, so there was no tournament for them. Geoff had a solid sophomore season, making the first team All-Ivy, averaging 13 points and 5 rebounds. The Tigers had a shaky start in 1968, sitting at 8-6 at the halfway point, but they flipped the switch, going 14-0 in conference play to save their season. Geoff set himself apart as the best player on the team, leading the Ivy League in scoring, averaging 21 points and 6 rebounds on 46% shooting. The Tigers made it back to the NCAA tournament, facing St. John's. Geoff had a rough debut, dropping 15 points and 6 rebounds on an abysmal 5 of 19 shooting, as the Tigers lost by 9. Geoff and John continued to lead the team as seniors, but their supporting cast wasn't as strong. The Tigers couldn't win any more than 4 games in a row, as they had one of the lowest scoring offenses in the nation. Geoff was second behind Jim McMillan in scoring, but the Tigers finished 16-9, missing the tournament. In his senior year, he averaged 22 points and 6 rebounds on 46% shooting. Geoff was one of the top prospects heading into the 1970 NBA draft. This is also a year of expansion in the NBA, as the Braves, Cavs, and Trailblazers were added to the league. Portland's head scout Stu Inman had never seen Geoff play in college, but he drafted him with the 8th pick, making him Portland's first ever draft choice. This pick wasn't received well at first, even being labeled as a disappointment in a local newspaper. For their inaugural season, the Blazers had a good mix of veterans and young players, as Rick Adelman, Jim Barrett, Stan McKenzie, and Leroy Ellis joined Geoff in the starting lineup. Being drafted to an expansion franchise was the best thing that could happen to him, as he had ample opportunity to adjust to the pro game, and coach Roland Todd implemented a fast-paced style that suited his skills. In his pro debut, Geoff dropped 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. Over the first 25 games, he wasn't the most efficient, but he was surprising a lot of people. He dropped his first 40-point game on New Year's Day against Seattle. His scoring numbers continued to impress month by month, averaging 29 points in February and 31 points in March, including 46 points, 4 rebounds, and 10 assists on the 19th. Geoff had one of the most underrated rookie seasons ever, dropping 6 40-point games and 5 games with double-digit assists. Geoff was a rookie all-star, ranking 7th in points and 16th in assists. He shared the Rookie of the Year with Dave Cowens, as Portland was pretty balanced offensively, with 4 other players besides Geoff averaging double figures. The defensive end was where they really struggled, giving up 120 points a game. Portland finished 29-53 in their first season, as Geoff averaged 25 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Sidney Wicks and Larry Steele joined the team in 1971. After winning 3 straight titles in college, Sidney wasn't used to losing, so he and Geoff would butt heads a lot, as they were both alpha personalities. Sidney was angry that Portland wasn't winning consistently, saying his teammates were playing as individuals, not as a team, and it stinks. Although he didn't mention any names, Geoff took it personally, replying with, "I'm sure he's talking about me, because a couple of times when I shot, I saw him shake his head as if he should have had the ball." Sidney is just as guilty as anyone on the club. He probably leads the league in shot attempts. Apart from that, Geoff also started to experience some knee pain while training in the offseason, as his sophomore year wouldn't start until November 30th. But he went back to his normal output, dropping 35 points and 6 assists on 57% shooting on December 3rd, followed by 36 points and 5 assists on 73% shooting the next game. Geoff played the most inefficient season of his career, but he still had 28 games with at least 20 points and 23 games with at least 5 assists. But Portland still couldn't figure out how to win, as he had a 9-game and a 12-game losing streak. Sidney Wicks had an excellent rookie season, and he was actually 5th in shot attempts. But at 18-64, the Blazers still had a lot of work to do. Geoff averaged 19 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists. The Blazers probably made the biggest mistake in the history of the draft in 1972, selecting LaRue Martin instead of Bob McAdoo. The hiring of former Wake Forest head coach Jack McCloskey almost felt null and void with Portland not choosing the North Carolina native. Jeff started out this season well, but Portland lost their first 11 games. He dropped a career-high 51 points and 7 assists on January 20th against Houston. Rockets guard Mike Newland was on the receiving end of a lot of those points, and he famously told the media that Jeff wouldn't do it again. But on March 16th, Jeff dropped 51 on him again. LaRue turned out to be a huge bust, while third-round pick Lloyd Neal had a surprisingly good rookie season. Cindy led the league with 4 triple-doubles, but the Blazers still couldn't field a competent roster outside of their 2 young stars, as they finished 21-61. Jeff averaged 25 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. The Blazers took steps to improve in 1973, trading their first-round pick Barry Parkhill to the Cavs for John Johnson and Rick Roberson. Jeff dropped 29 points, 3 rebounds, 9 assists, and 6 steals in the season opener. He switched to the point guard position, and he was playing at a career level to start, as the Blazers were a respectable 10-10. He even had a stretch from late February to late March, averaging 29 points on 52% shooting. Jeff and Sidney made the All-Star game again, while Larry Steele was the top thief in the league. Even with that, the Blazers still continued to struggle playing defense, so a 27-win season would continue their playoff drought. Jeff averaged 24 points, 3 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and a steal on a career-high 48% shooting. The Blazers got the first pick again, but they didn't waste it this time, drafting Bill Walton. They also signed veteran guard Lenny Wilkins, as he would become the player coach. Jeff continued to play the point, but Bill would struggle with injuries, only playing in 35 games this year. Jeff put up a season-high 37 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists on December 7th against the Knicks. This was also his best passing season, as he had 5 games with double-digit assists, dropping a career-high 14 dimes on March 16th against the Braves. Bill definitely made a difference, as although the playoff drought continued, they finished with a much-improved 38-44 record. Jeff averaged 18 points, 2.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and a steal. The Blazers drafted Bob Gross and Lionel Hollins in 1975, but Bill continued to deal with foot injuries this year. Jeff put up solid numbers, dropping 32 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists on November 29th against Buffalo, followed by 34 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists on the day after Christmas against the Lakers. All in all, he had 6 30-point games and 37 games with at least 5 assists. But Portland was stuck in neutral, as Bill's availability was a make or break for them. Steve Halls was decent off the bench, but LaRue still couldn't figure it out, so their front court was shaky all season. Sidney had fallen off from his all-star form, but Lionel showed some promise. A 37-45 finish meant another season without a playoff appearance. Jeff averaged 19 points, 2.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and a steal. Jeff's contract was up in the offseason, but his knees continued to bother him to the point where he needed surgery. The Blazers wanted him to get the surgery, but he wanted a new contract before the surgery, so the two sides were at a stalemate. The standoff would end when Jeff was traded to Atlanta for the second pick in the ABA dispersal draft, which Portland used to select Maurice Lucas. Jeff would never suit up for the Hawks, as he had 3 knee surgeries in the span of a year, ultimately retiring in 1978. The unfortunate part was that Portland finally figured it out the year that Jeff was traded, making their first playoff appearance and winning the championship. Post-retirement, Jeff was a color commentator. Then he hopped into front office roles in Portland and Sacramento, being named the Executive of the Year in 1999 and 2001. He would hold this role with the Kings until 2013. Geoff Petrie was drafted by Portland to be their first star, as his elite offensive game was on display from the get-go. He would have scored so many more points if there was a three-point line, but he also had to handle the slash to the rim. He also had the playmaking needed to run the offense. After becoming an all-star as a rookie, the future was bright, especially when they drafted Sidney Wicks, but they couldn't translate all this talent into wins. The Blazers also missed on several draft picks, while injuries to key players were a factor as well. Most people associate Bill Walton with the 70s Blazers, but Jeff was a star way before him, even if his knees didn't allow him to reach his full potential. Man, thank you guys. I really appreciate y'all for all the support. I had vaguely heard of Geoff Petrie because, to be honest, when I first really started getting into the league, like the only thing I knew about the Blazers, like I knew about Bill Walton, but it's like, they won a championship way back in the day. And then when I started looking into how their franchise started, this is like the start of the Portland curse. It's almost like they sold their soul to win that championship. I know that sounds crazy, but it seems like they sold their soul to win that championship. For the first 6 years, they couldn't even figure it out. They had all this talent. I mean, Jeff and Sidney, like that was a great duo. They could produce a lot. Like they both wanted the ball. They really couldn't get a lot of talent. I think like they really messed up by not getting Bob McAdoo. Like that was their biggest mistake because it's like, this is a layup. Like this is a shot at the rim with nobody guarding you and you still miss it. The only 3 relatively healthy seasons of Bill Walton's career. You get a championship, and then the next year, you start the season 50-10, and then Bill's foot, and then you can't play for 3 years. Then all of a sudden, then you get Clyde Drexler, another superstar, but yet you can't get past Michael Jordan. Then you got the Jailblazers, and they get screwed by the Lakers in the playoffs. Then you got Greg Oden, you got Brandon Roy, and LaMarcus Aldridge. That's a great nucleus if they would have stayed healthy. And then you got Dame Lillard just wasted his whole career, and now he's back in Portland. But who knows, they might do something, who knows. But it seems like their whole franchise has been cursed. Like, I really like the way he plays the game. I can say how people would compare him to Jerry West. He's not the same on the defensive end that Jerry West was. Because Jerry West was a really good defender. Like, he was more of a playmaking sharpshooter. You know, like, he could shoot the lights out and he could handle the ball and pass to the teammates. Because that's still rare at that time, where your whole offense is running through the big man in the post. But if you got a guard that can create offense like that, you know, that's a huge plus. This dude was definitely underrated. Like, it sucks that he was the first star to really go down with the Portland curse. All the big superstars get injured in Portland for some reason. Geoff Petrie was really nice, man. He was really a nice player. You know, most people just forget about what he did in the NBA because there's barely any footage. Like, there's barely any footage of this guy. But he was definitely a hooper, man. He definitely was a great player. Sucked that he couldn't stay healthy. They could have had a nice team. Once they finally figured it out, he could have had a championship. You know, maybe him and Bill could have really worked it out. Maybe Sidney Wicks could have found a way to play off them. Who knows? Thank you guys. I really appreciate y'all. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe if you're new to the channel. Turn my post notifications on. Thank you. Please be safe. I'm out. Peace.